What's up, everybody? This is Corey with Good Evening Tech, and today we are going to learn the basics of PHP. So, the little project we have going here is a website, and all that it's going to do is let's put in a name. Let's say Bob Saget. Put in a random number here, hit submit, then it adds a record. And as we can see by refreshing, the data is persistent. So this is going to go over the basics of HTML, the basics of PHP, and the basics of MySQL. So if you like this content, please hit the like button, and if you want more of it, please hit subscribe. So a couple things we're going to go over. I will be using Bootstrap. You just go to this website, grab this link, CSS right here. Once we go a little bit farther on, you'll see exactly where you need to put this. And I'm going to be using something called XAMPP. So this creates a little Linux server on whatever operating system you have, and it's contained, so it's perfect for testing. But choose whatever system you're on down here, and everyone's slightly different in how it looks when it runs, but I'm using it for OS X, and you'll see it looks like this. Now, when you first start it up, the status light may be red. This IP address is internal, so it's not your public IP showing to the whole internet. But you'll want to hit that start button if this light is not green. If it is green and you don't see anything happening later on, go to services and just hit start all. So the Apache's the server, MySQL is the database. ProFTPD is used to set up an FTP server to send files between other things. It's not something we're going to use. Go over here for volume. So if yours has this, if you're using Linux or Windows, I'm not 100% where it puts the files, but hit mount on OS X and then hit explore, and it'll show you where your files exist. Because this on the OS X side, it is a virtual machine just running in the background. And over here, it's going to show you just general information. If you feel like something's not working, it'll let you know when things start and stop. So with my server running here, we have a couple buttons. If we hit go to application, it'll just reopen the application right there. If we hit open terminal, it starts a terminal within this application. I found this is just the easiest way to get inside of this application without having to deal with using your own terminal and trying to remote in. But yeah, let's get started with it. So first thing I'm going to do, take over Visual Studio Code, my favorite IDE, hit that open button. You'll see down here when I hit that mount button on volume, it'll mount this hard drive to my locations. I'm going to go to LAMP. And if you're not too familiar with Linux servers, the HT docs is usually the folder that houses all the HTML elements that the server uses. If you look through here, it's just a bunch of folders that are used to store important things for it. We're going to open that. Ooh, did it freeze? Did I not open it? Guess we'll find out. Go here, go there, go there, go HT docs, and then hit open. Oh, I know why it's doing that, because I have it open in another window, so we'll just use that window. That's too easy. Alright, so this is the finished product. What we're going to do with this, so we're going to go in here and just rename this to index2. And we're going to create a file called index.php. Now that we have that open, let me do something here so I can have my cheat sheet open to make sure I don't waste anybody's time. Alright, grab this bad boy, send it over there, put my notes there. Alright, perfect. So, first thing we're going to do is use in VS Code what's called Emmet. It's a shortcut for just creating rapid boilerplate for an HTML document. I know it says PHP. If you're not too familiar with this, everything inside a PHP file is HTML until you use PHP's special tags. So we'll go over that in just a second. So Emmet, if you just use an exclamation mark, The first exclamation mark builds out the boilerplate for an HTML document. So we'll just call this my PHP app in the title. Down here in the body, it works just like an HTML document. Say hello world. Hit save there. Go over here and it should transform. Yep. As you can see, it says hello world. Go down here into the console, and as you see, it's an H1 tag. So what we're going to do now is show how PHP works. So PHP has special tags. You'll see a question mark PHP, and then to close it, another question mark PHP. What we can do here is echo, we'll put in HTML tags. This is just to check that everything's working. Everything in PHP needs to end with a semicolon, so if you're used to JavaScript or other scripting languages that semicolons are optional, it's not in PHP. Hit refresh, and as we can see, howdy with a paragraph tag. All right, now go back to our project. Now what we are going to do over here, if your terminal is not open, you're going to hit open terminal right here. Open this, and then you're just going to type MySQL. It'll open you into MariaDB. MariaDB is just another form of MySQL. No reason to get into it now, but almost all the commands are the same as MySQL and MariaDB. But what we're going to do is create a couple things. So I already have this user installed, but I'll write it out, show you exactly what it does, and we'll go from there. So what we will do in here is you type create user. We're going to call our user PHP test, then you do an @, another colon there, type out localhost, and then you just hit the semicolon, then you'll hit enter. Once you do that, we'll create a database, and we're going to name ours PHP Basics. You can name it whatever you want, just keep the name of it so you can put it in your PHP file. Once you hit that, you will grant all privileges on PHP Basics. This is dot then asterisk, so it gives this user access to everything inside this database. And PHP test, and you have to include the host of it at localhost. Then you'll hit enter. Mine already has all the privileges, but you should see query OK. You should see query OK with all of those. Once we're done with that, you will use, what did I name this? PHP Basics. It should say database change. If it doesn't, that means you spelled something wrong. If you don't remember what you spelled it between now and then, like let's say the terminal closed, you can just use show databases. It'll give you a list of them. But since we're using this one, what we can do now, let me see if it's already made. I'll use describe employees. All right, so it's already made for me, but over here, I'm gonna open the script and I'm gonna make this a little bit bigger so it's easier to read. Change that to size 24. And we're going to go in here, and this is an SQL script file. I'm not running the script from this. You can do that. That's not the point of this video, but just look up if you want to create a script to run and create your tables and all of that, you can. But I'm just going to do it from here. So as you can see, we have the create table employees, and we create these brackets. Inside, we're going to create the first field as an ID, as a medium-sized integer. Not null in auto increment. Auto increment means it'll change every single time by an increment of 1. First name is a character that we're saying is going to be 150 characters long. It doesn't have to be 150 characters, but this is saying this is the limit that you need to reserve space for it. Then we have not null because we want this value. Last name 200, not null. Phone number characters of 20. I don't store phone numbers as integers. It's just everything I've seen, never something to do. So I'm just going to store it as characters, and this is a little bit longer than a regular phone number, but just me thinking if there is extensions to it, a different country code, or whatever the case is, it gives a little bit more room to wiggle with. So you shouldn't be using the database to validate data. This should be the last line of defense if you want to use it to check the length. The last thing we'll have here is a primary key, and we just set it to ID. So if you typed it out in here, you can just copy it, go over to your database and paste it in and hit enter, and it should create the table. Next thing down here, this is how you would insert a record into SQL. For this, we'll insert into employees, first name, last name, phone number, values of that name, this phone number, and then you see one below. It's a pretty standard format. You don't have to type this out every single time. If you're submitting a bunch of them, you can just add a comma here and glue this underneath that. Semicolon in SQL means, hey, this is the end of my line, execute. So if you have a semicolon, that means, hey, execute this code that I have right here. If I took that semicolon off and copied it over there, it would just create a new line because SQL thinks you want to do something else. But outside of that, let's go back to this file, and we're going to create some variables so we can access our database. All right. So the first thing we are going to do is grab our server name, and these are all the values that you assigned. Username equals PHP test. Password equals password. And then DB name equals PHP basics. All right. Now the next thing we're going to do is we are going to create a SQL connection. So how PHP does this is with a object. So what we're going to do is store that object in a variable. We're going to use the new word, mysqli, then do server name, username, password, and then DB name, hit that semicolon. And now we are going to check if the server works. If you've never seen this format before, PHP uses a arrow syntax. So if you're used to a dot syntax in languages like JavaScript, this is just a function that is inside of this object mysqli under this variable. So other languages, you'll see a dot. For PHP, it is this arrow. What we're going to do down here is we're going to use a special function called die. All right, so what die does, die is a special function inside of PHP. It tells it, hey, just stop. This is where the function ends, or the whole file, sorry. The whole file will end right here, and we will tell it why, if it's spelled right. There we go. Now what we'll do down here is, it's not die, what is it for this one? Is it close? It is close. We're going to put close down here. This just closes the connection for the SQL database. So what we'll do here is we'll hit save, go over. We have nothing being said, but let's see if we can make it say something. All right, so as you see, here's why the connection was lost, access denied. So we did the password wrong. That's something that would show up. It's a great tool for testing. Probably shouldn't say this on your development side. Go back, make sure everything works. Neat. All right, I am going to grab that Bootstrap link now. Copy it from over here. Actually, I'll copy it from here. Hit this copy button. Go over here inside our head. We'll just add that link. And now we have Bootstrap in our project. All right. Now what we are going to do is we're going to create a variable down here, and we are going to call it result. Now inside our result, we're going to run a query. Queries, I'm going to write it out, is an object that will store, the query is something that executes and it'll store in the result what we're doing. So I'm running this on the database we just created. So select star from employees means collect every single employee from that database. Now we're going to go down here and show the cool power of PHP. Alright, so what I just did right here is I actually closed out PHP. It's reopened down here, but now we're right back in HTML. So do a little formatting here, make sure our body's correct, make sure the closing tags are correct. Now I'm going to write out some Bootstrap formatting so things look kind of nice. Right inside this row. If you're not too familiar with Bootstrap, it's a great tool to just help prototype everything that you're trying to do. Creates nice basic formatting and makes things look nice when you're trying to test stuff so you don't get bogged down with trying to create something. Alright, we're going to have 2 rows here. And the first one we are going to have is our table. Table of class table. If you don't want to do Bootstrap for this project, you didn't want to add that CDN over all these classes I'm writing out, you don't have to write out, because if you don't use Bootstrap, they do nothing at all. Call it table row. We'll do TH, scope of column. We will call this one first name. TH scope of column. Last name. TH with the scope of column. And we'll do phone number. Now that those are done, we're going to jump down here and go into the T body, and then we're going to jump right back in to PHP. Alright, now we're back in PHP to create our content. So the first thing we're going to do is run if my SQLi num rows, and what we're going to put in here is our result. So that variable we declared right up here, we're going to use it down here, and we're going to check. This is another special function that PHP has in it. It's going to check if there's any rows in what we've taken. So if there was no rows in this, we can actually just add it right now and type out x echo tr echo td with a call span of 3, so it takes up the entire thing. And boop-a-doop boop, make sure that I'm doing this right. There we go. Oh, I don't need another line for that one. So this echo function, it'll print wherever it sits. So at the order that we post this into, it's going to show it exactly where it is. So we could actually put this all in one line. I just like it like this so it's easier for me to read. But what we're going to do now is we're going to use a for each function. And how this works is it's like a for loop, but it's using assume, it's going to assume how to iterate over the list. PHP will figure that out for us. And we're going to set this row as each indexed item. So what we will do down here is we'll call tr echo of td, add a dot right there, add row first name, then a dot with td with a closing tag. Alright, and then we're going to copy that for that and that. Type out last name, and then type out phone number. Alright, now let's see if this works. So hit save, go over here, refresh the page, and as we see, those are our 3 records that are in there. Pretty cool. So this down here would run if we had nothing in it. If you have nothing in your database, you skip the part with the script. This right here, you can just use these to put it in, or just right now we're about to add the form to add documents to it. So do down here, we are going to create a form. Visual Studio Code is not happy with PHP right now. Go up here, form action. So the action is where it's going to ask for this information. So the index file at the top of a project is the slash. So we're just telling it to go back to this file to run the code. All right, div class of margin bottom. Like I said, the classes are just to help make it look nice. If you want to ignore them, you are more than welcome to. It will not affect the functionality. It may just not look nice. All right, type of input. I always like to put the classes forward. It's a type of text. And we're going to give it an ID of first name and a name of first name. When you submit the form, the name is what it will name this field. Just do a placeholder of first name. All right, then we're going to grab this, last name and phone number. So we'll go in here, change that, change this, then we will change this, this, go down here, change this guy. I'm going to change this to a number. We're putting it as a string, but everything when it's returned from an HTML document is sent as a string. But we'll use HTML's built-in validation to make sure at least numbers come. Doing validation is outside the scope of this, but this is a first place thing that we can do to help validate what we receive. And we won't use a placeholder for this one. Go up here, change this guy to phone number, hit save, go back here, refresh. As you can see, oh, it doesn't even yell at us. All right, one more we forgot to add. We're going to do input type of submit. We're going to give it a, like my classes over here, we're going to give it a class of btn primary of type submit. And whatever you give the value here is the text it will show. Hit save there. All right, now when we hit submit, nothing happens. Even though it's a post and it's going right to this form, there's nothing that actually handles the post. So what we need to do now is build the code for that. And what I'm going to do is have it at the top of the file before we run this select all so that it can grab the latest one we just made. A PHP file will run top to bottom. If something happens closer to the bottom of the file and you don't have anything that tells it about what's happening up top, it won't update. All right, so the first one we're going to do here is we're going to use a special little variable that PHP gives us, post. So anything with an underscore in front of it is a special variable that PHP has under the hood to help us make this easy. So what we're going to do is check if we have all of our forms underscore post. As long as we have all of these, so this is two things. It's going to check that the post method was ran. It's also going to check that there's values for all of these. So there's a little bit more validation you may want to do here, but for this sake, if somebody misses an item in the form, it won't actually submit it. we're going to create SQL right here. Inside here, I'm going to do insert into employees. You got to tell it the order that everything's going in. First name, last name, and phone number. And that, we don't need to put a semicolon in there. It helps take care of it. We're going to write some stuff out right here, and then I'm going to explain what's going on. Bind. Make sure I did all of that right. Nope. So this one right here, there we go. Bind param SSS. And we'll write these guys out again. PHP doesn't really care what kind of quotes you use. I just like to keep everything the same. Post here, phone number. All right, we're just gonna put, make sure, SMT execute. Perfect, and then I'm gonna write one more line, and then we're gonna explain exactly what's going on here. All right, so what this is doing is we're creating an SQL statement. So what we want to do is insert into here. Oh, forgot my values. That's why I was trying to write everything out, but you know, there's always something you forget. So we're creating an SQL statement right here. Insert into employees, first name, last name, phone number with the values of placeholder, placeholder, placeholder. This is a special thing that PHP recognizes that, hey, these are where we want to put the values. We're going to create a statement variable, which is going to hold our connection that we made to the SQL database. We're going to prepare this statement. It's going to do whatever it wants to this query. It's going to generate the query into, it's going to generate the string into a query. We're going to go down here and we're going to use what's called bind parameters. So in here, there's special codes on the PHP's document that this is to the data type. I just use string, string, string because everything given to us is strings, but you can make it more precise with adding integer, bool. There's a list on the docs at what it will do. It'll be in this order. So first name, last name, phone number, question mark, question mark, question mark, needs to match this SSS. Then we'll use the post to first name, post to last name, post to phone number. Phone number is a number when we use the number field, but it's translated into a string when it's sent back, so it is a string. As long as everything is happy here, it's going to run the statement execute. As long as nothing fails up here, it'll echo out record inserted. So we will hit save here. Make sure everything else is good. Go here. Don't want to resend the form. Go down here. Send YouTube, good evening tech, 678, 65 that, 6654, hit submit, and look at that, it's submitted. So that's pretty much it for this project. You know, play around with it, try to break it, try to make it so you can add a button to the side here. Give you a hint, it's something you want to use as a form, but use that to create a delete function so you can remove a record. But outside of that, if you like the video, please hit that like button. If you didn't like it, hit the dislike button. Please subscribe for more content, and I hope you have a great evening. Bye.